Good morning.
Good morning, good morning. Okay, today we're going to start on Lamed Aleph Amud Beis by Amar Chalbai. It's 4 lines from the bottom. Yeah, yeah. I think Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. It's supposed to be learning. We should have the base of English immediately. You should pay. Okay, it starts like this. Amar Chalbai Chazina Leila Rav Huna Karach Le Miachad Klap Yishma. He's talking about rolling up the mezuzah. He says he saw that Rav Huna would roll the mezuzah from Echad to Shema. In other words, you start at the end of the line. Mezuzah here. Let's see. Jerusalem. So you would start over here and you would start rolling it this way. Then this would come over. From Echad, from the end of the line, you start rolling it. The end of the line is the inside. And when you open it up, you're opening it up from the beginning. Unrolls, you can already start reading it as it's unrolling. And also, Va'isa Parshiyaseh Stumais. This is a question why it's Parshiyaseh. It's Parshiyaseh is a plural. They adjusted over here that it's not Parshiyaseh, it's Parshiyasav. No, but still a plural, no? Parshiyais is already a plural. Parshiyasav. Okay. They make the parshas of Shema a stuma. Yeah, the problem is there's only one parsha. So Taisvus asks, "Ksas kasha the nakalash of Rabbim, vein shem kim parsha achas." Taisvus asks that what are we talking about over here? Talking about that the separation between the two paragraphs. There's two options how to do that. One is you can make it stuma. Stuma would mean, according to the traditional commentaries here, is that you start somewhere indented in the line. As you start, you don't start the line at the beginning. You start the line. You start the lines indented towards the end of the line. Now, if you finished the last paragraph, like Ubisharecha, let's say, which is the end of the first parsha of Shema. Shema has Shema, and the mezuzah has Shema v'hayim Shemaya. So if the end of the first parsha is Ubisharecha, then you start the next paragraph of v'hayim Shemaya. You start towards the end of that line. You leave a break of a few empty letters, like an empty space over there, and then you start at the end line. So it's, a stuma would mean that it's a window. It's a gap in the thing. So let's take a look. Where's Shema? It's in Chanan, right? So in Chanan. Yeah. So if you notice the parsha of Shema, you see that Uvisharecha? Right here. Look at where the next paragraph starts. V'haya ki yaviyacha Hashem alekecha al aretz asher nishba. You see the V'haya over there starts at the end. So the parsha of Shema ends with a stuma. It ends in the middle line, and the following parsha starts with a at the end of the line. You see that, Bill? Now V'haya ki yaviyacha, the next one, which is an akev. V'hayim Shmaya, I'm sorry. V'hayim Shmaya is also stuma. Shmaya is also stuma. They're both stumas. So he says that you make the parsha stumas. Okay. That's Reb Chalbai that he saw Rav Huna's mezuzah. Meisvei, the Gemara has a question. Amar Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Shimon ben Elazar says, Reb Meir, interesting. Yesterday we had Mishum Reb Meir, in the name of Reb Meir. Now we have him talking about Reb Meir. He must have been a student of Reb Meir, which is what I thought. The problem is, why did it say Mishum Reb Meir? Mishum means that he didn't learn by him. He only heard in his name. Anyway, whatever the case is, Reb Meir hayakaisvel duchsustus. Reb Meir would write the mezuzah on duchsustus. Duchsustus is which side is it? It's the side that's closer to the flesh. But the way they would make the cloth, the parchment, is that they would take the hide and they would split it in half. There were like two membranes, two skins. They would separate the two skins. One side of the skin had to be cleaned from the hair. One side of the skin had to be cleaned from the meat. And then they would have this. And then they would write on the middle of both of them. The outer one they would write on the inside, and the inner one they would write on the outside. Right? And they would write on the inside. Now duchsustus is the inner one. There's some contradictions in this. In the commentaries, they say this way, they say that way, but let's see if they say it lasts longer, the cloth. Duchsustus, meaning cut in half, might have related to the Greek dixus, meaning separated into two or forked. The term was applied to one of the parts of the hide that was split in two. Okay. So if you notice over here, they have a picture of a mezuzah. You notice that the second paragraph is starting indented. That means it's a stuma. So they would make it stumas. Reb Meir made it stuma. The question is, Reb Shimon ben Elazar says that Reb Meir would write on duchsustus. He would write on this kamin daf, a column. And he would leave an area, a margin on the top, and a margin on the bottom. He did the opposite. Psuchis means that it goes all the way open till the end of the line. It doesn't start at the. See, the truth is, well, over here, Ubisharecha ends almost at the end of the line. So the next line is just indented. If it would have been a psucha, according to some of the opinions, what we would need to do is we would need to skip a line and start on the next one. So the line needs to be open till the end. That's a psucha. So he would make it psuchas. Reb Meir would make it psucha. Reb Meir was a sefer. But Marti light is Reb Shimon ben Elazar. So he knows Reb Meir. He's the Talmud of Reb Meir, like we said. But Marti, I said to him, Rebbe, Ma tam, why are you making it psuchas? He says, where do you come up with this, that it's psuches? Because in the Torah, those parshas are stumas. We took a look. The next paragraph starts in middle of the line, towards the end of the line. It doesn't have a blank. It's not all the way open. So he says, well, the parsha of Shema and the parsha of Hayim Shmaya are not juxtaposed. They're not right there. This way you have to go, 2 pages later to get to that. So, therefore, we don't have to do it exactly the way it's written in the Torah, because it's not a continuation. So I make it psuches. It's like a brand new subject because you're skipping paragraphs. Okay, we're not finished with our question, but that's a problem so far. Rav Huna says that you do it stuma is Reb Meir says you do it psucha is Reb Huna is an Amira. Reb Meir is a Tana, but 1 second, that's not the problem yet. V'amar of Chanan al Amarav halacha Reb Shimon ben Elazar. That's the problem. Problem is that Rav says the halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Elazar who says psuchas. Rav Huna is the Talmud of Rav. My love, psuchas. What does he mean, Rav? What does Rav Chanan al-Marav mean when he says halacha like Rav Shimon ben Elazar? Must be talking about the way that you make the paragraph, the breaks in the paragraphs in the Torah. Sometimes you see at the end of a chumash, you see a pei or a samach. Pei stands for psucha, and the samach stands for stuma. It has to do with pei means that there's a brand new paragraph, and the stuma means that it's a sub paragraph. You want to take the English. Pei is paragraph and samach is sub paragraph. So that's where it works on this stuff is Rabbi Elio Kitov in a Sefer Aparshias. Chaim, I saw the Sefer Aparshias in your parents' house. He goes through each parsha, says why it's a psucha, why it's a stuma. This is the main topic. This is a subcategory. He works on these.
The whole set.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I saw it over there. Okay, I don't see it around really. It gives a tremendous clarity to the parsha, something that like we're not used to. We read the parsha, we read the Rashi, whatever, but to get like that whole thing of like what's real, this is a oh wow. So yes, good morning. So nice. To get it yesterday. Come on here, use this one.
Thank you.
Okay. Beautiful. Came for the cookies?
Yeah. There's some cookies, okay.
They actually are cookies, but they're downstairs. Okay. So we're learning now that Rav says Allah is like Reb Shimon ben Elazar, my love of psuchas. Must be talking about the psuchas. The contradiction to Rav Huna. The Gemara says La Yarevach. We're not talking about the psuchas, we're talking about the space on the top, the margin on the top, margin on the bottom. Kama Revach. What is the margin? Amar Amar Rav Menashe Bar Yaakov, Amar Rav Shmuel Bar Yaakov. Kamalai Atba de Sifri. You got to help me out. What does it say? How do they translate Atba de Sifri? According to what I'm understanding, it means there's a certain type of like a ruler that would hold the parchment down while they would write. Shouldn't fold up. Clip. Size of the clip. Makes sense. Atba de Sifri. Size of the clip. Okay, so he says you have to leave a margin. He's not telling you how to make the two paragraphs, that the second paragraph should be indented or not. Today in English, we indent a new paragraph. You press tab and you start a new paragraph, right? That's it is in books. When you're writing, do you do that as well? When you're writing, like you write a letter, do you indent a new paragraph? I don't remember doing that. They never told me to do that.
It was just at the beginning. What it's called. You started.
Really? When you're writing a letter, you open it up and yeah? Is that what you do?
I mean, the letters usually one subjects. The paragraphs each.
Huh.
I don't. But at the beginning, usually it's like there's a space. Like,
Dear, maybe they do. Dear Mr. So and so, thank you for the thank you. You indent. Is that what you do? You do an indent.
Is that the word?
You do? You're supposed to do an indent. Okay.
With computers, we've all forgotten how to write.
So you do an indent.
Yeah.
So you always start. Every paragraph starts stuma, starts indented.
free, you hit tab and it does it for you.
Uh-huh.
I forgot what the name of it. I know how to do it.
Okay, so that's how it is in the printed text. I guess that's how you write also. Amalei Abayler of Yosef. Abaya says to Rav Yosef, "Va'atlei tizbera d'chiyam Rav harevach." Don't you hold also that what Rav was talking about when he says the halacha is like Rav Shimon ben Elazar? He's talking about the spaces. You have to hold that. But Rav is minhaga. Rav holds up the minhag. Written in Nagalma Bestumas. And you have to say, since Rav Shimon ben Elazar says that how do you make the parshiyos? You make them psuchais. And Rav says that Allah is like Rav Shimon ben Elazar. And Rav says like Rav Shimon ben Elazar. And Rav Shimon ben and Rav also holds that you have to follow the minhag. Well, the minhag is that you do stumis, not like Rav Shimon ben Elazar. So it must be that when Rav said Allah is like Rav Shimon ben Elazar, he's not talking about the paragraph breaks. He's talking about the margins. Because Rav Shimon ben Elazar said more than one thing. Amar Rav Kana Marav, because Rabba says in the name of Rav Kana, who's a student of Rav. Rav Kana was a student of Rav. Remember the one that ran away to Eretz Yisrael. It says in Yaveh Elio, B'yoymar Cholzen B'minol, Sheminlay. When it comes to chalitza, there's two possibilities of what type of shoe you have. You can either use a shoe or you can use a sandal. I'm not sure exactly what the difference is, but maybe this type of strap, that type of strap, I don't know. Maybe if it covers the top or if it just.
It's like those toe shoes, like some settings.
Is it closed toe? Is that the difference? Sandal or
But places that won't let you, and also like the sandals could like fall off easily.
So, if Elio would come and tell us that Cholzen b'minol shayminlay, that we use a shoe, we would listen to him. Let's give him over here. So the Shittim Kumetza says that a shoe is made from a thin leather. And there's a problem with the minnow that could sometimes, it doesn't cover the whole foot. It doesn't cover the foot. So if Elio would tell us to use a minnow, we would listen to him. Ein choltem b'sandal, if he would tell us not to use a sandal, ein shayminlay, we would not listen to him. Shekvar nagam b'sandal, because our custom is to use a sandal. Okay, so we see that Rav says that the minhag, it takes precedence. Even if Eliyahu Navi would tell us something, not if he would tell us to use a shoe, so okay, we would use the shoe. But if he tells us not to use the sandal, we don't listen to him because that we know that we can use the sandal. We could use the shoe also, but the minhag is a sandal. You can't tell us not to use the sandal. Rav Yosef Amar Rav Kana Amar Rav. That was Rabba's view of what Rav Kana said in the name of Rav. Rav Yosef said in the name of Rav. This is Abaya talking to Rav Yosef now. Im Yaveh Eliyahu v'Yomer in Choltzim Miminol. If Eliyahu Navi would come and tell us not to use a shoe, Shayman, we would listen to him. Ein Choltzim b'sandal, but if he tell us not to use a sandal, Ein Shayman Shekvar Nagam b'sandal. So not to use the shoe, fine. Not to use the sandal, that's not acceptable because we already use the sandal. And this is Rabbi Yosef. What's the difference between these two opinions of Rabba and Rava? Rabba and Rabbi Yosef. Minol l'chatchila kabeinayo. Can you use a minol l'chatchila? So it goes like a shoe. Rashi explains, according to the opinion that says that if Eliyahu Navi tells us to use a shoe, we would listen to him. We'd say that l'chatchila, we don't use the shoe until Eliyahu Navi tells us that we can. According to Rabbi Yosef, that says ein choltzim b'minol, Eliyahu Navi would tell us not to use the shoe, we would listen to him. That would mean that until Eliyahu Navi comes, we would use the shoe. According to Rabbi Yosef, we would use the shoe. That's the difference. So whatever the case is, we see that we follow the minhag, and the minhag is to do stumais. And Reb Shimon ben Elazar says that you do psuchais. How could it be the halacha like Reb Shimon ben Elazar? It must be that Reb Shimon ben Elazar, that when Rav says halacha like Reb Shimon ben Elazar, is not talking about the paragraphs. Elav shmamina revach. Shmamina has to be talking about the margins, because that's another thing that he was talking about. Rav Nachman by Yitzchak Amar, Rav Nachman Yitzchak says, mitzvah laseis and stumas. It's a mitzvah to make the parsha stumas, which stumas meant that you start the new paragraph at the end of the line. You have dinam psuches, shaperdami. But if you did a psuches, it's still kosher. My psuches, the Kamar Reb Shimon ben Elazar. So why did Reb Shimon ben Elazar say that you do it psuches? If you're telling me that you do it stumais, it's just psuches is b'diavad. It says af psuches. Reb Shimon ben Elazar meant not that you do it psuches, not that you do the open line is open. He just said that if you do it and the line is open, then it's going to be kosher. He didn't mean that that's how you do it. He meant that even if you did it like that, it would still be good. But you really do it stumais. He got rid of that whole story that where Shimon Elazar says that you do it psuches. He didn't mean that you actually do it psuches. He meant even if you did it psuches, it's okay, but you really do it stumas. Leima Messiah, I'll bring you support. One step closer to coffee.
Everybody else is neighbor.
Kiyetzibai, similar to this, Sefer Torah Shabbalah. Sefer Torah is bala means that it's disintegrating. Tefillin Shabbalah, or tefillin that are disintegrating. A nice mezuzah. Can't make from them a mezuzah. Mezuzah would be like a little cut out, a little parchment. You could save it. You could save the parchments from the Sefer Torah, and then you make a what would you do? You would cut out the parsha of Shema. You would cut out the parsha of V'hayim Shemaya. You would sew them together. Now V'hayim Shemaya starts at the end of the line, and Shema ends at the beginning of the line. You would have a classical stuma. Why? So why are you not allowed to do that? It says why are you not allowed to do that? It says because you're not allowed to take from something holy and make it something lesser holy. The Sefer Torah is more holy than a mezuzah.
Taken apart.
Well, you use whatever you use whatever it is. You don't want it to mamish to go to waste. But if you would be allowed to go from level to level, what's the whole problem? Why you're not allowed to? Because you're not allowed to take it down. But if you would take it down, then you could. Amai, how would it work anyway? Hachastuma vacha psucha is over there to stuma and the mezuzah has to be psucha, according to Reb Shimon ben Elazar. The Gemara says, Dilma lahashlim. Maybe it doesn't mean to make a full thing. Maybe it would just mean interesting, the Shita Mekabetz here, that you would take a piece of a Sefer Torah, margin of a Sefer Torah, and you would write on it. Rashi says, let's see, what is the other pshat of it? Rashi says that if the mezuzah was missing a line, you would cut out a line and sew it in.
But there's Sefer Torah seems like it's disrespectful. You're gonna use it like for parts.
That's why you're not allowed to do it. That's why you're not allowed, because you don't take it down a level. But if you would be allowed to take it down a level, then it would be acceptable, right? Our question is, but it wouldn't work because it's not done the same way, right? You follow what the question is? Yeah. So we're saying, no, that's not a problem because we're not talking about using it intact. We're talking about using it as pieces that you would be allowed to do that. It would work because you could cut out a line, add it in. Hamaridin, Baisin. That means that if you would be allowed to take it down from higher holiness to lesser holiness, you would be allowed to do that. The problem is, Vatanya, halach l'moshe misina, we have another problem. We have halach l'moshe misina, tefillin ala klaf. Tefillin is written on the parchment. Mezuzah al duchsustas. And mezuzah is written on the inside parchment. Tefillin is on the outside. Mezuzah is on the inside. Klaf makam basar. You write on the klaf, on the inside, when you split the hide in half, you have the outer part and the inner part. You use the inside of the outer. In the inner one, you use the inside. Basically, you're using different parchments. And now you're telling me that you could take from Sefer Torah or Tefillin that are disintegrating, and you can make from it a mezuzah. How can you make from it a mezuzah? It says you're not allowed to make mezuzah because you're not allowed to lower it down. But if you would be allowed to lower it down, then it would be fine. The problem is it's a different material. Gemara says la mitzvah. This that we said that the tefillin is specific about which type of parchment you use, and this is and the mezuzah is specific. That's only lechatchila. It's mitzvah. That's better. But of course, if you do it the other way, it would still be yaitzer. But Tanya Shina Pasal, what are you talking about? If you do it the other way, you'd be yaitzer. It says if you change, it becomes pasal. It's betfillin. You change the tefillin. Tefillin is the one that's specific about the klaf. Tefillin can't be on duchsustas, but mezuzah, even though it's on duchsustas, could also be on klaf. Also be on the other one. You would use klaf. When did we have that? No. He would use duchsustas. The opposite. He would use the duchsustas, right? He would use the other type. Yeah, he would use the inner one, not the klaf. That's what we had. What is that? Computer paper? Remember the story with the guy, the shliach? He dropped off a mezuzah at someone's house, and he saw the person afterwards. He said, "I put up the mezuzah. I don't know why you left some Hebrew instructions inside. I don't need the instructions." Yeah. So the Gemara said that Rameir wrote on the Chustas, right? So in the notes, Hillel's pointing out that there's a contradiction to somewhere else where it says Rameir wrote on the klaf. And the answer that Rameir also wrote on the Chustas. He wrote on klaf, but he also wrote on whatever the case is. But Tanya Shina Bezel Apostle, you were telling me that the whole problem is mezuzah can't be on the chustas, but I'm sorry, the whole problem was tefillin can't be on the chustas, but mezuzah could be on both. The problem is the Brisa says that whether you change this or that, it's puzzle. My answer is idi vidi betfillin. We're talking about tefillin, and what we mean is vada kasvina klaf b'makom sar. If you wrote on the klaf, on the outer part of the klaf, that means in the place where the hair grows, that's a problem. Vada kasvino. And if you wrote on the duchsustas where the flesh was, that would be not acceptable. But all of that is by tefillin. By mezuzah, it's not a problem to switch from klaf to duchsustas, and therefore you would be able to take a piece of tefillin and use it for your mezuzah if you were allowed to switch from higher holiness to lesser holiness. Apparently, tefillin is a higher holiness than mezuzah. Iba yasema. Also, we could say Shina bezer bezer tanaihi, that when you switch from one or the other, that's actually machlekes tanaim. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Shina bezer bezer pasal. Some words missing in this Gemara. Bach is going to add it in. It says, starts off like this. Rab Achoi Machsher Mishum Rab Achoi Machsher. If you switch from the correct one for mezuzah, and you use the opposite type of cloth for the mezuzah, Rav Achai says that that's okay. And Mishum Rabbi Achai Rabbi Chanina, it says Rabbi Akiva. It's supposed to be Rabbi Yaakov Rabbi Chanina. He says that it's kosher. I'm sorry. Shina b'zeh is puzzle. And Rabbi Achai, I think we have to drop the word kosher from before. You drop the word kosher. And then you read the whole thing together. Rabbi Achai Mishum Rabbi Chanina, V'amila Mishmei Rabbi Yaakov Rabbi Chanina says kosher. It's a machlekes of Tanakama and Rabbi Achai. The problem is now, I read in Eisen. Okay, 1 second. That's period. That's the end of the sugya. So, but there's a machlekes here. Machlekes here, and that's how we can explain the prices. Umar says, "How read in Eisen?" We introduce another problem of it. That how could you make from tefillin into mezuzah, from sefer Torah into mezuzah? The problem is, how you're not. What's the reason why you're not allowed to? Because you can't take from higher holiness to lesser holiness. If that wasn't an issue, then you would be fine. Like that's your whole issue. But the problem is, Rabbi sirtat. But a mezuzah requires sirtat, and tefillin doesn't have sirtat. Sirtat means to scale, not to scale. What score? To score the paper. To score is to make a line, to make lines on it. Like the Sefer Torah has like a line. It's, we write in on line paper. We use the bottom of the line to write it. In the Svarim, we use the top of the line. You let the letters hang from the top. Anyway, by sirtat, Damarav Minyume Bar Chilki Amar Mcham Bar Gori Amarav. Kol mezuzah shein Mr. Tetes psula. Doesn't have sirtat, then it's going to be puzzle. And you told me that the reason why you're not allowed to do it is because of the holiness. Forget about the holiness. It doesn't have the same thing. Rabbi Yamin Bar Chilki Didei Amar sirtat shel mezuzah alach l'mesh misinai. And Rabbi Minyamin, sounds like Binyamin, but it's Minyamin Bar Chilkia, he says, Minyumi Bar Chilkia, or Minyamin Bar Chilkia, he says that it's Allah L'Mesh Misinai. That's pretty serious. The Gemara says Tanaihi. That's not an issue because that's a machlekes Tanaim. The Tanya, but in a brayso Rabbi Yirmiyah, Mishum Rabbeinu. Rabbi Yirmiyah says in the name of Rabbeinu. Who is Rabbeinu? This is a brayso. Who's Rabbeinu? Is that Rebbe? What do they say over here? Is Rabbeinu? No comments on the. It's not on.
Chaim, who is it?
Yitzi wants to know who it is. Let's see.
I don't know.
Shem Rabbeinu. They say Rav. In this commentary it says Rav. Rashi and Brachas. That Rabbi Yirmiyah would be a town. That Rabbi Yirmiyah is a Talmud of Rav. That Rav is considered a Tana. Yeah, you hear this because it's a brisa. It's a big kiddush over here. Shem Rabbeinu. They would have such the historians would play with this. Tefillin mezuzahs nechtav shleim min aksav. You don't have to look inside when you're writing tefillin mezuzahs because everyone knows it by heart. You don't have to look. Usually, You have to look inside, look in a printed text, and you write it. You have to write it exact. We don't want any mistakes. But this is well known. Bein trichus sirtet. Wow, doesn't need sirtas. Sirtet doesn't need to be scored, and that would be the pshat in the brisa before. Brisa says that the reason why you can't make tefillin into mezuzah is because of the holiness. He asked, "What about the sirta?" He said, "Mezuzah needs sirta; it needs to be scored." So no, we have a brisa that says it doesn't. Okay, so this matches that. The hilchas tefillin by sirta to mezuzah by sirta. The halacha is that tefillin doesn't require sirta. I remember in Saita there was a discussion about this. If I remember correctly, Taisva said that tefillin needs sirtat only on the outer part, only on the outer, but not each line. So that was one of the discussions there. Mezuzah requires sirtat. Let me see what it says over here. Okay. V'idi, shleimen achsav. But you don't have to write it from the actual text. You can write it by heart. My taima, migras, grisen, because everyone knows it by heart. Girsa is like something that you go through quickly. Everyone knows it. Amar Rav Chelbai, another Rav Chelbai. We had him before, and when we started today. I saw Rav Huna the Yosef Apuria the Sefer Torah Allah alay. I saw Rav Huna sitting on a bed, and there was a Sefer Torah on the bed. The kaf lekada aara. So what he did was he took a jug, he turned it upside down. Turned it over, and he put it on the ground. V'anachalei, Sefer Torah. V'hada Yosef b'mita. He put the Sefer Torah on the jug, and he sat on the bed. He didn't want to sit on the bed that has the Sefer Torah on it. More explains, Kasavar, that Rav Huna held, Asaleshev al gabi mita Sefer Torah monachalei. You're not allowed to sit on a bed that has a Sefer Torah. Interesting Taisvus and discussions over here. Upliga the Rabba Bar Chana. And Rav Huna argues on Rabba Bar Chana. Amar Rabba Bar Chana, Rabbi Yechanan. Rabba Bar Chana says name Rabbi Yechanan the opposite. Mutaleshav al gabi miter Sefer Torah munachal. You're actually allowed to sit on a bed that a Sefer Torah is on it. So what? It's like on one bench. V'im lachshach adam loymar. And if a person will whisper to you and say that you can't do this. And it would tell you that Ma'aser Rabbi Lazar sheyoshev al mitim nisker Sefer Torah munachal v'nishmat yashav al gabi karka. Someone's going to tell you, "Oh no, you're not allowed to do that." I'll prove it to you because Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Elazar. Which Rabbi Elazar is this? That Rabbi Elazar was sitting on a bed and he realized that there's a Sefer Torah. He quickly jumps off, slips off, and he sits on the floor. And he made it so he was so pained that it was as if like he was bitten by a snake. So over there, Hasam Sefer Torah al gabi karka. It was the opposite. The Sefer Torah was on the ground, and so therefore he put the Sefer Torah on the bed. But if the Sefer Torah is on the bed, you're allowed to sit down. So there's a machlekes between Rabba Bar Chana and Rav Huna. If you're allowed to sit on the same bench that has a Sefer Torah on it. There's some shuls that after Hagba, they instead of someone sitting there with the Sefer Torah, they have a bench that has two holes in it, and they take the Sefer Torah and they put the hand in there, and the Sefer Torah sits there without someone holding it. So some shuls do that. Yeah. Yeah, how was the Sefer Torah on the floor?
This is how hard.
What does it say?
Normally, the people saw him coming, or whatever, they put it on the ground. You realize that. Dumb people do dumb things.
Yeah, they quote from the Radal that they took it off. They put it on the floor for him to sit there. Very good. However, they have another commentary here that says it wasn't really on the floor; it was just on the lower part. Anyway, okay. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel. Yehuda says in the name of his teacher Shmuel, Kasva, or Ksava. The mezuzah is written like Igeres, without shirtut, without all the precision that it's supposed to be. It's written just like a letter. Then psula, that's going to be pasul. My taima, what's the reason for that? We have Gzeir Shav. It says ksiva ksiva misefer, ksiva ksiva misefer. It says by a get, it says sefer krisus, and when it says sefer, that means that you need to be exact. So it says uchsavtam al mezuzos. It says v'kasav la sefer krisus. But that's what the people were doing. They were making space for him. Yeah. This
judge them.
No, it's based on the there's a Gemara that says how foolish the people are that they stand up for the Sefer Torah, but they don't stand up for a Gav Rabbah. So maybe that's what they thought that they would.
That's what I was thinking.
No, so that's the answer, right? That's not a question. That's an answer. That's why they put the Sefer Torah down and they have them sit.
Horace the lesson.
So we learn from Ksiva that it needs to be written exact. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, another statement in the name of his teacher Shmuel, Tala b'makal psula. It's supposed to go on the door. But let's say they didn't put it on the door. They put it on in a stick. Now, there's different interpretations here. One interpretation is they put it on the roof. On the what's it called? The lintel. Put it on the lintel. Rashi says that Tala ala Pesach bimakal, that they put it inside a case, put it inside a little stick, and they put the stick on the door. Mezuzah can't go in a case. Mezuzah is like probably the Gro's opinion that the mezuzah is not. You're not supposed to have a back to the mezuzah. It's to go directly against the door. That would this would fit with this Rashi. Or you didn't put it in the doorway. You put it on the back side of the door, on the outside the door. It says, I'm sorry, I skipped the line. Tala b'maklas psula. My time, what's the reason? It says bisharecha needs to be in the doorway. The be'inan. Bisharecha be'inan. It has to go in the doorway itself. Tanya nami hachi. So started by Tala b'makal. If it was put in a stick, so you put it outside the doorway. It's sakana, because the house isn't protected. The ain ba mitzvah, and you're not makayim the mitzvah as well. It has to be put in properly. So base munbaz hamelach hayoisin pundakais kain. The house of Munbaz hamelach, they would travel a lot. They lived in hotels. They would go from hotel to hotel. They were traveling around the country. So they would stay like that. So they had their mezuzah inside a stick, inside a case, and zeichel mezuzah. And they had a zeichel mezuzah. It wasn't mamish for the mitzvah, but it was zeichel mezuzah. And it's zeichel mezuzah. Yeah. I told you. I think that I read an article about Houdini that he put on tefillin every day. Harry Houdini.
Right.
And
Dr. Stein tried to argue.
Oh yeah, Dr. Stein. Yeah, but then he agreed that I was right. So, but he also put up a mezuzah. He banged the mezuzah into his hotel rooms. Yeah, that's what I read. Woo. Yeah. Okay, I didn't put it into the skip. My grandmother always spoke about how she wanted to see. There was a circus. Yeah, that came to Rhode Island. She wanted to go to the circus, and Houdini was there. And Her mother said, "We'll go next time he comes." He died.
Oh, such regrets.
It must have been in the early 20s because she was born, I think, in 17 or 1914 or 17. Must have been. She was a little kid, so I don't know what year he died.
So what's a Zeker or mezuzah? Is it some mezuzah that's not put up properly?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. But it's not just that. Really, it's a dira sarai. They're in a hotel room. You don't need a mezuzah in a hotel room. It's a dira sarai. You need a mezuzah in a house, not on a hotel room. Like we don't put a mezuzah on a sukkah, right?
Uh-huh.
But for a zeicha, they had a mezuzah. Yeah. Sort of like what the Rebbe says, you keep a mezuzah in your car.
Mm-hmm.
It's a zeicha, it's not a... I guess. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mishmol, mitzvah anicha b'tei chalaloi shel Pesach. The mezuzah has to be inside the door frame. Mar says pshita, of course. B'sharecha merachmanei, in the door, in the gate. Mar says sal k'dai t'chemina ha'elva merava mitzvah anicha. Since Rabbi says that the mitzvah is to place it, b'tavach hasamach l'shus rabim. The most outer part of the doorway is possible, because the protection is where you put the mezuzah. So you put it closest to the edge of the house, not on the inside. More if you have these big gates, the big wide gates, put it tefach hasamach l'rishus rabim, the tefach closest to the outside. Kama de merachki mali. So the further out you put it, even the better. So Kamash Malon, it comes to says, but say that you still can't put it outside the doorway. Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, Rabbi says, name of Shmuel, Ksava. Okay, let's leave it over here. Let's leave it on the top of Gimel. Okay.
It's like on the frame.
In the frame, inside the frame, in the inside, not.
I think they will tell you say like they can put in the system because it's gonna be temporary. It won't be just like
Right. Right. I mean, you're saying to put it on the hotel room.
It's gonna be
Right.
You're never gonna stay more than a week in a hotel.
Right.
Maybe 2 3 days and then you.
Unless you're very rich.
Yeah.
I know a girl that lived in a hotel. Yeah. She went to college. She didn't rent a place. She lived in a hotel.
So that's different.
Yeah. She liked the room service. The thing that they clean every day. They bring you food. Okay. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you.